Now we're still in a part of the year where we get to ride probably every other day or so, but we're going to start working on this project. This is part 2 of the FZR restoration. Today's project, if I get enough time to work on it before Miles gets here, I want to try to fit the windshield to the fairing and if you only knew how difficult it can be if you have a windshield that isn't made for that exact year bike and you're trying to do a little adapting, a little cutting. But the first thing is I want to get the windshield attached to the fairing, of course, and get the holes drilled and get it all fit before I do anything like doing any sanding or final fitting. And one of the things I'm trying to pass on with the information we share, and we all try to help each other here on the A-Team, what I'm trying to do is get the sequence of how to make these jobs a little easier than they normally would be. If you try to mount the windshield once the fairing's mounted, a lot more difficult. This is the easiest way I found to do this job. Now every one of these bikes that I have in my collection, they've all been restored to some degree, or rebuilt or refinished or whatever. The trick is not to make the job any harder than it has to be. Restoring old motorcycles is hard enough. You don't have to figure out ways to make it any harder. So let's get down to shop and see if we can get started on this project today. Now you would think these holes, the way they're in this, remember this is a 93, 94 windshield, and it's not going to line up with the holes, the little impressions that they have here. And the worst thing, never do it, is never just hold the windshield up and try to drill all the holes at once. It's always best, and it's the best tip I can pass along. Drill the 2 front holes first, get the bolts relatively tight, and that'll line up the next 2. Drill those 2, and that'll line up the last 2. If you do it in that sequence, you stack the deck that it's going to come out as good as you can possibly do it. Now, step 1, before I do anything, and it's always a good idea no matter what you do, to get the part as clean as possible. Now, a couple of things with this windshield I know for sure. When I got this from Pete at Circle Cycle, he had to dig through some boxes of old windshields, and I know from looking at the price tag, this is probably at least 20 years old, maybe more. So I know it's going to be delicate, it's going to be brittle. Well, all plexiglass is somewhat brittle. But the first thing I want to do is, even though I have the stuff to clean scratches, I want to try to get rid of any fingerprints on this. And the other objective is I want to protect, as we're doing this work, protect some of it with tape. So we're going to be doing this in a way that I found in the past doing these kind of jobs. It works pretty well. And boy, you can get yourself in a world of trouble. The windshields, well, it's very easy to crack them, very easy to break them. I hope it's my lucky day. So the first thing I want to do, and I want to do it with clear tape. I normally would do it with blue tape, but I want to be able to see through. And I'm just going to go around the edge of this, because I don't get as much of it covered as I can. So I don't, actually it doesn't even matter, I can put it up like that. What will happen is, if I don't do this, I'm going to wind up scratching it somewhere, somehow. But just having a little bit of tape like that along the edge as I'm rubbing this on that fairing, and that fairing has a carbon fiber reinforcement from step 1, this will protect it a little bit anyway. Now the next step is going to be to take this, that's got the tape protecting the edge, and try to get it lined up by hand, by eye, as close as we possibly can, and then get it taped in position. So the tape will hold it in the position that we have it, so we can mark those front 2 screws. Now once I get this almost in position, I like to take a couple of strips of Gorilla Tape, flip it over. I want to look at it from the other side. And none of the holes line up. I guess each year they change to where the holes mounted. But this is a 91 fairing and a 93 windshield, and that looks like it's going to be pretty good. Now, what it gives me now is a lot of chance to make any corrections, because this lines up real nice, yeah, that should be fine. But having the tape in position, now what I want to do is very, very carefully, with a Sharpie marker, mark the 2 front holes, just the 2 front holes. Now just using an ordinary Sharpie marker, I can again, from the inside, because I used clear tape, I can see exactly where my parts are. And I want to make sure that's up exactly where I want it to be. It's going to be real close. Now another trick, whenever you're drilling through any of these fiberglass things, to avoid cracking it, I'm going to do the holes with a Dremel tool. Now this is a pointed cutter, but you really don't, it's not critical, any cutter. What you don't want to do is a drill. What happens, a drill gets down into this fiberglass, and this is very thin fiberglass, and at the very end it takes a chunk out. This will more or less burn its way through. And we have the holes spotted in the carbon fiber. You can see what it basically does, it burns its way through. So the objective now, we can open those holes up with bigger cutters, of course, but I want to make sure, before I go any further, I always like to double check that I haven't made any, because I can still correct these, but the idea is not to drill more holes than I need. That looks pretty good. Now I've got to deal with getting the first bolts in there. Again, I'm only dealing with the front 2 bolts. If you do it this way, you almost never have a problem. I shouldn't say never, but boy, you never want to drill all 6 holes at the same time. Boy, what a mistake that is. I just want to mention what I've used in the past several times, these aluminum bolts, and you can see they always strip out. That's one issue. They have little rubber grommets that you would think would do a better job of keeping things from cracking, and we have plenty of extra grommets. But what I want to do this time, because this is going to be hopefully a forever restoration, I'm going to measure the bolts, just use temporary bolts. I think I have one here. I wanted to show it. I want to get from Bolt Depot some 4 and 5 millimeter screws with the button head. Here's one here, right here. That's a Phillips. But anyway, they do make, and I'm going to get them. I only need 6 of them, but I'll get a dozen anyway. I wanted to get these for one reason. Yeah, it looks like I got more junk than I have good screws, and that's a good excuse to get them. Here's one. I want to get these because it's stainless steel. I'm not going to strip them out. I'll cut them to the exact length, and I'll get little rubber washers for each end. That's just one of the little upgrades I want to make. Now, in the first restoration 5 years ago, those screws were in there for a couple of years, and we were riding in rain and snow and crappy weather and who knows what else, the moisture that's in the garage. And what had happened is when I went to take them out, they freeze into the aluminum and the brass or whatever the nuts are made out of. They freeze shut, and then you wind up stripping this. So my suggestion, if you're going to do this right, just go get stainless steel screws and be done with it. And you can get them from Bolt Depot very inexpensively. BoltDepot.com. Now this is a cutter I have that's just a few thousandths bigger than the bolt holes. Now this is another, just a little over the top trick. I'm going to drill 1 bolt hole before I elongate the second one. In case they're off just a little bit, I can favor that side or the top or the bottom once I get 1 bolt installed. It's a little over the top, but it's worth doing. It doesn't cost you any extra. And because we have a pilot hole, this should go right through. Now, we're not going to drill a second hole. Anytime you drill in carbon fiber, fiberglass, drill it with just like I just showed. Now, I want to see if, again, the bolts we intend to use, a nice precision fit. But I haven't elongated the second one. I'm going to put the windshield in place, just hand tighten it. Of course, no wrenches, just hand tighten it. And then see if that hole lines up exactly in the right spot. Now I can see that, from looking at that, it looks like we got it pretty close, right and I'm going to line up the windshield the way I want it to be. Oh yeah, we're right in the middle. So we can drill that hole next. And then of course when that one's done, the next two, and then the last two. And that is such a good trick. Okay, so all 6 of these temporary bolts are in. Of course, we're going to get the real bolts. And they're just hand tight. And keep in mind, if you use those aluminum bolts and you put Loctite on them, you're almost guaranteed not going to get them out or strip them or have to cut them out. It can be a real nuisance. But anyway, that's that part of it now. So now one of the reasons we wanted the 93 windshield, because we didn't have a choice. Hard to get one that would fit, but what it's going to do is it's going to give us a little more clearance because we have this bike set up with handlebars, not clip-ons. And so what will happen, in the past our master cylinder would end about here, and it would be like a close fit. Really never was a problem, but this will be a lot nicer, I think. So now I'll get an ink marker, trace this out, and just trim that back piece off with a Dremel tool. There's just an ordinary cut-off wheel. This seems to work fine for cutting any fiberglass. I'm not sure we're going to be able to do this conveniently, but now obviously if you're not shooting video, you want to wear a mask. I'll clean this up. Now I don't know, I'm probably going to wind up putting a little radius on that when I do the final sanding of the part. But it cut right through the carbon fiber reinforcement. And we know that if I put that little, basically maybe what I'll do is I'll just trace that angle out here. I could do that. Anyway, not critical right now. Yeah, the next step on this is going to be disassemble it, take all the bolts out. We haven't done any sanding on the fairing, of course, yet. We're going to fit it for the brackets and all the holes that have to be drilled before we do any of that. But we will, next time we get a no riding day, I'll see what kind of curve I want to put in there. I do have the original pieces, I'll save them. Once that's apart, now I know I've got the holes spotted real nice, and we've been able to adapt the 93-94 windshield, give us a little more handlebar clearance, be able to shoot better video through this. I'm sure the radar detector, it shoots through that better than through the carbon fiber windshield I made. And that's on video, by the way. All of our, coming up on 1,300 videos, there is a video on how to make a carbon fiber windshield. So part 2 ends, and of course we continued on part 3. Got to keep in mind we are in the part of the season that we ride and do this simultaneously and according to the weather and according to how we feel and a million other things. But anyway, that's one big step ahead. I feel like we made some progress here. That every day I'm starting to get excited about this project more and more. And by the way, I have that picture up on, I've been looking at the picture. Not sure, these things evolve. I did a video on doing these sketches, a couple of videos how to do sketches like that. And really, this kind of a project, it grows on you. But I never forget all the good times I had, the good track days, the good, well, everything. And most of all, the good days with our friends. So anyway, thanks for watching, and hope we see you on the next video. Part 3 will be the next video. Thanks for watching.